Hello, welcome to the Comparing Solar Quotes webinar. My name is Abby. I'm a program manager with Solar Oregon. Today, we are going to be going over how you can compare different solar quotes in order to make the best decision for you and your household. So on the agenda for today's webinar, we'll be going through the various components that make up a solar system, the elements that are included in a typical solar system quote, other criteria you may want to consider when picking a solar contractor, and then I will walk through some example quotes before discussing how you can find a contractor if you have not yet already found one or you are unhappy with the current quotes you have. This presentation is put on by the organization I work for, Solar Oregon. Solar Oregon is a 501c3 nonprofit that works to advocate for solar power through education, through webinars such as this one, our How to Go Solar Plus Storage webinars, solar tours, solarized campaigns, and other peer-to-peer education events. We are a member-based organization, and you can support our work by becoming a member today and by following us on social media and Eventbrite at Solar Oregon. While I'm going through some of this, I'm going to really quick launch some polls to just go through and see who is in the Zoom room with us today. These are completely optional and your information will not be tied back to you. It is just for our own grant reporting purposes. If you would like to attend other events through Solar Oregon, you should check out our upcoming showcase, which is our Smart Electric Panel Showcase that will be happening in person on next Thursday in Northeast Portland. You'll get to see what a smart electric panel is and learn more about how they work and the benefits of them. There's one more poll I'm going to launch. This presentation is also made possible by support from the Energy Trust of Oregon. Energy Trust of Oregon is an independent nonprofit that works to provide access to affordable energy throughout Oregon. They serve the 2.4 million customers of Portland General Electric, Pacific Power, Northwest Natural, Cascade Natural Gas, and Avista. Thank you so much, Energy Trust of Oregon, for your support. And thank you all of you for filling out those polls. I really appreciate it. There will be one more poll at the end of the presentation. If you have not yet received any solar quotes, you can go online to Energy Trust of Oregon's solar bid tool. This tool allows you to put in some information and then we'll connect you with up to three different trade allies that work in your area. Trade allies have been rigorously qualified by Energy Trust of Oregon and are the only contractors approved to offer you Energy Trust of Oregon's solar and storage incentives. I'm going to put some links in the chat now. Included in these links is the link to the Energy Trust of Oregon solar bid tool, as well as just some other resources that I'll be referencing throughout our workshop today. If at any point during the workshop you have questions, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. No need to wait until the end of the presentation. Put those questions in whenever you think of them. We'll be putting resources and helpful links in the chat like I already have done. So now without further ado, let's go into the components that make up a typical solar plus storage system. So here's a diagram of a basic solar system. We have the photovoltaic or PV panel pictured over on the left. This is what is mounted on your roof or on the ground, and when the sun hits this panel, a volt of electricity is generated. From there, it is then sent down to a new device that would be installed in your home as well, called an inverter or microinverter. Both inverters and microinverters are installed frequently throughout Oregon and are a great option just depending on the needs of your system. The goal of the inverter is to convert direct current or DC electricity to alternating current or AC electricity, which is what your home runs on. From the inverter, the power then flows to your home electrical panel, where it is then used to power your computer, charge your electric vehicle, and do everything we need electricity for. If at any point in time your solar panels are generating more power than your home needs, any excess power flows out through your new bidirectional utility meter that allows power to flow in both directions. And from there, it flows out to the utility grid to be utilized by your friends and neighbors. Now, this new bidirectional utility meter also works in the other direction. If at any point your solar panels are not generating as much power as your home needs, such as at night when there's no sun, then you will be able to pull power from the grid in order to power your home. So these are the basic components of a system and what you can expect to, at minimum, be included in your solar quote. So now that I've walked through the different things. How does solar actually save you money? The process that solar helps save you money is net metering. So to explain this, I'm going to walk through two different examples. The first is in a typical sunny summer month, which is this graph on the top left. In a sunny summer month, kind of like today, it's been pretty sunny all day today. Your solar panels are producing so much power. It is far more than what you need to consume, which is this blue bar up at the top, meaning you are earning so many net metering credits, and all those credits get to be banked. So all those excess credits go into your own little net metering bank jar, piggy bank, for you to use during the winter months. So if we think back to like 6 months ago, or even really 2 months ago when it was cloudy and rainy and snowy, we can see that while we're still producing some amount of power from our solar panels, we're producing a lot less than we were at during the sunny summer month. We still are producing some, but it doesn't quite meet our expected consumption. And so that is when we use up all those net metering credits that you earned during the sunny summer months. Net metering credits roll over from month to month. That's how this is possible, but they do not roll over from year to year. The net metering year begins and ends on March 31st. So any excess credits that you have not utilized at midnight on March 31st are forfeited and donated to low-income subscribers. Now, how does this actually look on your bill? So we can see for this customer, their net period usage was negative 327 kilowatt hours. This means that their billable kilowatt hours are zero, and they added 327 kilowatt hours to their year-to-date banked excess generation to use during the cloudier months. Now, it's important to remember that while their billable kilowatt hours are zero, their final energy bill for this month will not be zero. That's because we pay a small fee just to be connected to the grid at all here in Portland, along with some taxes and fees. That ends up being about $15 per month. So while it's kind of annoying, you won't get a bill for $0.00. $15 is much less than the average utility bill here in Oregon, which is about $60 or $70. So now when it comes to the requirements of your solar system should be sized based on how much electricity you consume. You want your solar system to meet and not exceed your expected electricity usage. This is because you do not get a check for those excess credits. They are forfeited, and therefore you want to make sure that you are not paying for excess solar panels that you don't really need when you won't get any benefit from that extra kilowatt hours you are generating. Other factors that can limit your system size are your location, your roof condition, available space, budget, and possibly aesthetics. The average size of a solar system here in Oregon is about 8 kilowatts, and the average size of a storage system is 13.5 kilowatt hours. Now, there's lots of reasons costs of a solar system can vary, so I'm going to be going through some examples with numbers later in the presentation. Just want to go through and show why and give you some reasons why your quote may be a little bit different than what I show here. This can come from the size of your system and components, if you require any structural analysis or upgrades, whether you need to upgrade any electrical work, your system design, and how many incentives you can access. When it comes to differences in system production, if you're comparing two different quotes, some important questions to ask are how many watts is your total system? And then you can also calculate your cost per watt by dividing the total cost by watt capacity. It's also important to know your production estimate and look at it and ensure that it will, if possible, ideally, it can meet all your expected electricity usage, but at minimum is doing what you want it to do. You also want to know if there's any other charges on your quote that you need to be aware of. So now let's walk through some different elements in a solar quote. So what's included in your system price? First up, we have the equipment. You want to be aware of what equipment is being installed and the type of equipment being used. This comes down to brands and different modules of panels, and just noting any differences between different quotes. There's then the installation cost and fees, and then also you want to be aware of any warranties and maintenance. Sometimes there'll be two different warranties, of both a manufacturer warranty on the product itself, and then also an installation warranty on the installation piece of your system, and those might be two different numbers, so being aware of that can be very important. There also can be some additional add-ons that one contractor may recommend over another. These can be whether or not you're getting an energy storage system, what racking systems are using, and if you need DC optimizers. DC optimizers are typically added if you have a string inverter and not microinverters. What type of inverter you're getting will also make a difference. String versus microinverter. As I said, these are both installed frequently throughout Oregon. It really just depends on the needs of your system. And we talk about this more in depth in our other presentation of how to go solar and storage. page. If you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer them here, but you can also check out that presentation. If you're getting a home energy storage system, you might also want to get an essential loads panel. This is what allows you to have a partial home backup. Some installers may also advance production monitoring, so a system that allows you to very closely monitor how much electricity your solar system is producing. And then lastly, there's critter guard that one installer might recommend if you have lots of squirrels or other small animals in your area who might cause issues with your panels. So now, what technology is in your system? These are some questions you might want to ask is what brands are being used and if it is new technology or if it's been tested and out on the market for a while. If it's inverter, if you're getting an inverter and optimizer or microinverter, you want to know if there are any DC optimizers and why did your solar contractor pick an inverter and optimizer or microinverters over the other. Sometimes it just comes down to cost and space, but there might be a reason that they recommend one over the other for your specific space, and it's important to be aware of that. Now, when it comes to warranties, it's important to be aware of the length of the coverage and what is included in your warranty. I feel like the classic example of this is that the standard iPhone warranty does not cover a broken screen because they know that is the most common issue everyone has. So be very aware of what is included in your warranty and be sure you know what will be covered in the event of any issues. You also want to know what is being offered by the contractor versus the manufacturer. And if you are able to qualify for Solar Within Reach, which is Energy Trust of Oregon income qualified incentive program, they have a 7-year full system workmanship warranty for eligible projects. So if you qualify for that incentive and are working with a trade ally contractor, you would get that 7-year full system workmanship warranty. There also can be differences in logistics between two different solar quotes. This can come down to the payment structure, if you are using any financing and if that is included and being sought through your solar contractor versus through an outside financial institution, and the timeline. How quickly do different contractors think they can get your project up and off the ground and onto your roof to start saving you money? When it comes to financing, there are many different options available. Really quickly, this is not any official financial advice. Please do what is best for you and your financial situation, and be sure to consult a financial professional if you have lots of in-depth questions. That being said, here's just a little bit of information. If you're thinking about getting a loan, some important questions to be aware of are what is the interest rate? Are there dealer fees? If there will be any penalty for an early payoff, if it's a fixed or variable interest rate loan, how many times can you rematurize the loan? If there's a refinancing option, who services the loan? When it comes to leasing a solar system, this is when when a company will essentially lease the space on your roof to put up a solar system. You want to know if there's an annual escalator and does it put a loan on the home. In this case, to be clear, you would not own the system. So I've seen some cases where it can cause issues if you're later trying to sell your home. And last up is a power purchasing agreement. This is very similar to leasing, but it is when you put a solar system up on your home and then essentially buy the power those solar panels are producing back from whoever owns the panels on your home. So again, you would not own the panels, but instead would be purchasing the power from them. This is leasing out the production of the system instead of the equipment, as opposed to leases where you're leasing the equipment. These are all options depending on your financial situation. Just be aware of the different pluses and minuses to each one. Now with all this, what are the different incentives available that can help you afford solar power? So the largest incentive is the Federal Solar Investment Tax Credit, or ITC. This is a 30% dollar for dollar tax credit that allows you to claim up to 30% of the final ticket price of your system on your taxes. It can be claimed over several years if you do not have enough tax liability to claim the entire credit at once. And it is the incentives that you as the consumer are ultimately responsible for claiming for yourself. Energy Trust of Oregon offers both standard incentives and income qualified incentives. In order to access these incentives, you do have to work with an Energy Trust of Oregon, trade ally contractor, and I'm going to really quick put the link for that in the chat again. These credits, so for the standard incentives, it's $900 for PGE for solar and $1,100 for Pacific Power customers for solar. And when it comes to storage, it's $450 per kilowatt hour, up to $5,400 for PGE customers, and $450 per kilowatt hour, up to $5,400 for Pacific Power customers. There is also the Solar Within Reach, which is the income qualified program. That are the same type of incentives, one set for solar, one set for storage, all up to a specific dollar amount, just a little bit higher value for income qualified customers. The income cutoff for that program is very generous at about $123,000, I believe, for annual income for a family of 4. So be sure to check that out and see if you might qualify for those higher incentives. So now that I've gone through kind of the basics of what would be included in your quote, here are some other things to look for. This first is credentials. If there are some credentials you really want your contractor to have, that's important to be aware of and to check for. One of the big ones to look for is the Trade Ally certification, as that is the only way you can access those Energy Trust of Oregon incentives. And if you do not take advantage of those while living in a PAC Power or PG area, you're really just leaving money on the table. So I highly recommend it. It means your contractor has been vetted by Energy Trust of Oregon. And you can trust that they are doing good work. Lastly, there are also Belief in Valued Centers certifications. These are certifications that focus less on the workmanship and more on the values of the company as a whole. One example of this would be a B Corp, where they believe in giving some of their profit to a planet. So if there are some things like that that you believe in, definitely look for a contractor who meets those values and has the certifications you desire. Then it also is important to look at the reviews for your contractor. Definitely ask for testimonials and ask your solar contractor for any references for recent projects that they've done. You can also check out online reviews on services such as Yelp, Google, or other online review sites. These are really important as you can see how people are talking about your contractor, and you can trust that you are making a sound decision and are working with a trusted company. And then there are the softer side of things. These are things that really depend on your preferences, and those come down to, and some examples of that would be the company culture, the company size and structure. Some people like a bigger company that has more national recognition and is less likely to go out of business suddenly, while some people prefer a very hyper-local company that is very involved in the local community. You also might want a company that's been in business for a number of years, or you might want someone new who's kicking the ground running. These are all things that really depend on you, the consumer, and something that's going to be the same for everyone. It really just depends on your preferences. So now with all that being said, I'm going to go through some example quotes. So here's Here's the basic information included on a quote. So we have the system size of 8 kilowatt, the equipment information of what's going to be included, panels, inverters, monitoring, battery storage, the system production of 10,239 kilowatt hours per year, and the amount of energy consumption versus production you can expect, and your estimated savings. So after that, it then goes into system costs. So for this imaginary system, we're going to say it costs $32,000. We can then break down the monthly cost and price per watt from that. We can then look at what incentives. So local incentives would include those Energy Trust of Oregon incentives I keep mentioning, tax incentives, which is that 30% dollar for dollar investment tax credit, and any additional discounts you might be qualifying for, and financing options. So now here's an example of looking at all that with some numbers. We can see that this system being put here is an 8.36 kilowatt system with an estimated year one production of 15,004 kilowatt. It will offset the entirety of this customer's power with 0% utility power, 100% solar. And we can see this grid, how it would even out over time with these higher spikes in June, July, and August, filling in this space in February, March, April, where you're not getting quite as much power. It is being built with 22 SILFAB 380 panels with an N-phase inverter and N-phase Envoy IQ monitoring. When it comes to the payments on this, there are 2 different financing options that this contractor provides, and the total system price would be $42,818 with the IDC and total tax incentive taking off $12,845. There are then two different financing options that this contractor is offering, though you can always go to your bank, credit union, or other financial institution for other options. There are some credit unions that even offer loans tailored towards solar, which can be a really nice thing because it can allow you to refinance after claiming that 30% dollar for dollar tax credit. So now with all that being said, how do you find a contractor? So as I've repeated multiple times throughout this workshop, I highly recommend working with an Energy Trust of Oregon trade ally contractor. These are contractors who have been rigorously qualified and proved to offer Energy Trust of Oregon incentives and are familiar with all Energy Trust design and installation requirements. The link to the Energy Trust of Oregon trade ally program is in the chat. Specifically is to the Energy Trust of Oregon solar bid tool. This is a tool that allows you to put in your information and receive bids from up to 3 contractors who work in your area. This can allow you to compare bids and see the differences in how different contractors would design your solar system. It is a free and easy to use tool that does not bind you to getting solar in any way. When it comes to installation, your contractor will complete all paperwork except for the tax credit. You are responsible for claiming that on your taxes. Permitting can take between 2 and 12 months, depending on where you are in the state. I believe here in Portland, we're at about a 6 to 10-month wait on permits at the moment, though I know Gresham and other areas nearby are much shorter, closer to that 2-month. Once you have all the permits, installation is very quick at only 1 to 4 days, and your solar contractor will manage all inspections and interconnections, and all you have to do is flip on your lights and know that they are being powered by your brand new solar panels. So now with all that being said, I'm going to start going through the Q&A. As I said at the beginning, please feel free to put questions into the Q&A box. So one question is, why would you undersize the system? For the small added cost, which is heavily subsidized, it pays to make sure you'll exceed consumption and storage will be big enough. It's more expensive to add later, isn't it? You're correct. It is more expensive to add more solar later. And I'm not saying that you should undersize your system if you can avoid it. However, sometimes due to space limitations, budget, and aesthetics, people may choose to undersize their system and only offset some of their expected usage. We also cannot predict the future. So your solar contractor will talk with you about why any expected changes to your energy consumption. However, it can also, we don't have a crystal ball, and you might have something unexpected happen, whether that's buying an electric vehicle, someone suddenly moving out of your home, or someone suddenly moving in. All of these are things that would impact your system size and impact your electricity usage, and therefore either increase or decrease the amount of solar power you need. So your solar contractor will look at some past utility bills and do their best to size the system to meet all your expected parameters. However, sometimes it is not possible to fully offset your expected usage, and having some solar will help save you money more than having none. Another question is if there's any chance for including liquidated damages for finishing after expected completion date. This would be something to discuss with your solar contractor. I've never heard of this being offered. However, I'm sure there are some contractors who might have something like that. I think it really just depends on how confident they feel in their ability to get everything done on time. But that would be a great question to ask your solar contractor, as it would probably depend and be different for each one. Another question is, are PGE and Pacific Power at different incentive rates? They are. They are at different incentive rates. I'm happy to go back to that slide if you'd like to review that. And another question is, doesn't production vary plus or minus 20% year to year? It can. We can't control the weather. We have no idea how much sun we are expected to get. However, solar contractors work with the averages and do their best to size your system appropriately. I'm happy to stay on and answer more questions. Please keep putting them in the chat. I'm also going to go ahead and launch the final poll for this presentation, just so I can get a review on how I did today and for our records. But please keep putting questions in the chat. I'm more than happy to continue answering them. One person asked how many attendees were at this presentation. We've had some people come in and out. I know at one point I saw up to 11 attendees, and right now I think some people have had to drop off a little bit early in order to get to dinner, and we're at a little bit lower than that right now. And here's my contact information, and thank you all for being here tonight. If you have any further questions or there anything else I can do for you, please feel free to reach out to me at info@solaroregon.org. Thank you all for being here tonight, and this recording will be going out in the near future. I hope you have a great night.